So, went home, had a shower, a warm shower, because it wasn't really an option to have a cool shower. And, yeah, had a Gatorade or two. And I grabbed a box of 500 rounds more ammo and a fair lot more of 22 Magnum ammo. Jumped in the plane and flew out. G'day everyone. Today's video is a bit different to my usual content. I want to take you back to a time before I had YouTube, and all I was doing was documenting what was going on, and that was during a severe drought, and that's in 2019. That year we'd only had 35 mils of rain, so it was pretty damn dry, and it was not a good time. Temperatures during the summer were hitting around 50 degrees, and at night it was a cool change to 30 degrees. We are talking Celsius here. Now, it was a critical animal welfare crisis, and during this period I shot over 3,000 camels and a good number of donkeys as well as horses. The donkeys was somewhere below 100 and the horses was over 150. So I was using my GoPro, one of my Hero 3s, so not massive, quality back then. But unsurprisingly, that thing was overheating during that. Now, at the same time, my brother and a couple of mates were up in Japan skiing, and they had their GoPros locking up because they were freezing. So it was an interesting group chat on WhatsApp, to say the least. I was carrying 2 or 3 rifles with me each day, and I was carrying my revolver, my 357, because I was doing some yard work. I was getting in and out of yards where we had livestock that was struggling, and we also had camels in there, as well as kangaroos that were pretty vicious. The drought affected everything. So yes, I carried my handgun, and yes, I did use it for self-defense, as well as, putting some of that poor bloody animals out of their misery. And yeah, not easy work to do. The main rifle I used was my Remington 700 in 308 in a chassis where I had detachable magazines. And at the time, I only had 2 mags on me because of, it was just availability. It was difficult to get magazines. At the end of this session, or season per se, I needed a new barrel for my 308, and then I purchased another 308 to be able to cycle through them. So, carrying 2 308s, and one of those rifles I got rid of completely, which was the 7600, which was just terrible. I used the semi-auto 22 Magnum for yard work. So if the camels were all in the yard, I did try it out. That footage is gone. It was not terrible for it. It was good enough that you could drop a camel, but mainly I used it for finishing camels off. I just slung it over and I just used it to finish them. I did try it out in the field, and it was at about a range of 50 meters, camel on the run, and just went for my normal hit point on the back of the skull and emptied a whole mag into it, so 10 rounds. No bingo. I'll show you that. And yeah, the frustration that I have with some of our firearms laws is sort of shown and highlighted there, that there's a misconception that farmers can get semi-automatic rifles. Here in Western Australia, all we can have is semi-automatic rimfire. So that's a 22 Magnum if you're, really pushing your limits. And they basically only let you have those for wild dogs, rabbits, and no provision for large feral herbivores. The rifles were getting cleaned daily, and I was carrying lube with me. That's where I got became a big fan of using the Teflon lube on the rifles, and that would be between each engagement that I would quickly lube the rifle up and get ready to go to the next point. And during that time I lost a fair bit of weight. I lost around 10 kilos. So it is a new weight loss challenge for anyone. Smoke a couple of Camels and you'll lose some weight. Now, you'll notice a lot of the work I have done is on foot, and back then is a majority of work on the foot. That allows me to move through the bush, stalk, get closer, and not be running a loud vehicle all the way through. And not have to change a tyre. It's the last thing you want to do is just go through whacking a whole load of Camels and then have to change a tyre. So with that in mind, I did have a lot of music going on in the background, and that was because I wasn't thinking about putting this up on YouTube. So there will be some sections where the music is muted. I can tell you what music's playing, and I will try to, so you get some context. We might as well get amongst it, and I will, let you know what's going on. Alright, hopefully that's out of the way. So Jasmine and I have taken Jasmine's station car out, and it's the one with the air conditioning. And this is because we've got young Verity with us there, and Jasmine is pregnant at this stage. So got the Remington 7600, which I thought was going to be the better rifle for this job, because being a pump action, you can cycle it up and then just keep moving through.
Temperature.
And you can hear the noise that the Camels make, and it is not very pleasant. And look, it's not just the new rifle that I get stoppages with. So Jasmine's walking behind me and finishing all of those animals off. What I'm doing is finding any that were tagged and hadn't gone down, because what we've done is we just tagged through and then tidied them up. Now that group of Camels are drinking from a spring, which is a salty water. It's not great quality, but they aren't getting into our cattle yards. And that's why they are all congregated here. And yes, I am shooting over the top of cattle, and I'm not that concerned because I know the rounds are going over the top of them. That one was a big miss. And dirty great miss. The barrel on the Remington 7600 is extremely light, so it didn't really group that well as it got hotter. The Remington 7600 police model was difficult to get hold of at the time. also found that those magazines, the Lucky 13s, were a little bit fiddly to work with because they're a single stack mag. So we'll skip through all the nice amount of reloading. You can see the Camel is in horrible condition there. Like, it's got barely anything left on it, and yeah, it's not loving life. What I had there was a magazine slip, so one of the rounds has changed position in the magazine, which wasn't going to give us a good feed, and so I've just slipped another round in to make sure I've got a full stack. Big miss. And there, we just lost the muzzle brake. Big miss. Tag. Miss. Or at least a clip on that one. And that one's been tagged. Unsurprisingly, it's quite a warm muzzle brake. You can see the cuts on my hands from the other rifle I'd been using. And you'll sort of see why I was getting cut later on, because as I give up on this rifle. That's the Zeiss optic, which I have come to the conclusion is not one of my favourites. So as I went through the rest of this group, the camera overheated, which isn't a great surprise, and we ended up dropping 85 camels there, and I think somewhere around 30 would have gotten away. So not terribly impressed with how I went with that, because in this first group here I only dropped 14, and then as I went through, so it was another half an hour where I could get on top of them. Now they had a little bit of legs to them because they did have access to the water, muddy as it was. The next ones had it a lot worse. So Jasmine and I had pulled up and we had a bit of a break, and then we got ourselves moving over to the next spot, which is about 4 or 5 kilometers down the road, and this is out on the Salt Lake. So the mistake we made here was going on foot. We could have driven out across this, and the causeway was something that we built up later so you could get across it without getting bogged. I've cut the audio out here because there's a lot of wind noise. Now you can see them all in these little mud holes, and they weren't going anywhere. So what we did is we went for the ones that were on the move. And you can hear Jasmine getting stuck into it as well. Now, these ones that were stuck, we probably should have just walked up to, and we did that in just a moment. So that rifle had jammed again. I'm going to turn the audio back up. And I'll see if I can...
Yeah, that makes it easier. Yeah.
Let them those ones to start.
Which one are you shooting?
Far right.
Go for it.
So this isn't us doing this for fun. This is the animals need to be put down because they are going to die from having no water. Now, the camels, we are obliged to kill, and we have a business to run. And our business is the livestock, our cattle. So we're not going to just open our waters up and let the camels have it because our cattle will suffer. And this footage is what we actually provided to certain departments and members of government to express our concern about animal welfare in other regions in terms of ones that we aren't managing. And also the fact that we should have access to semi-automatic rifles. Even a semi-auto 223 on this would have been much nicer. A 30-round magazine and just click, 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 click all the way through, and it would have been a quicker, cleaner job. So we worked on this little mob here, and we got onto the ones out the back there. So we'll move over to that. And why I didn't use my revolver on these camels stuck in the lake here was that is outside of the remit of what we're actually allowed to use it for. So we have to use our long arms on those, and I didn't have as much ammunition for my revolver as would be necessary. And we aren't allowed semi-automatic pistols, which would have also made life easier. Even just a semi-automatic pistol for this, something like a 45, a 9mm even, you'd be walking through it and just tidying it up nice and quickly and cleanly. Would have been much more humane. Now we reckon that these camels were digging in the lake here because they were trying to get to water. That area there is somewhere that you can easily get bogged, and that's why we're tentative to go across it. And these camels have come up to these spots where you would get bogged in the car, and they had started to dig down. And I'd seen in other points around the station, I'd shot donkeys that had actually dug all the way down to about half of their body length to get to some amount of water. It was just unfortunate for these guys that it's on a salt lake and it wasn't good water. So this is what was left of that second mob. Once, while I was waiting for Jasmine to run up and get the car, and I'd tidied up everything else that I had. So we'll just keep on going through. What happened is my GoPro flicked over to snapshot mode, so it might show us in a little bit better detail what was going on. This shows you a bit of a blood trail of an animal that then didn't go that far, so that's a heart shot. So generally why I go for the neck shot, and you can see here, is this camel has taken the hit right there and dropped right there and has bled out extremely quickly. I don't like the process of a heart shot because there is a bit of uncertainty at times that you have hit them right in the heart. So making our way up. And I changed my zoom. You can see the cuts on my knuckles here from working the bolt and snapping on the scope, and also on my pick rail there. Coming up into the desert oak. It's not actually a terrible shot, but you've got one that's just been tagged, and I'm ready for the next one. Now they're not going anywhere. They're finding as much shade as they can. You know, it is bloody hot out here. And we can see this animal on the left here. You can see that it's tucked and it's already gone into its fat reserves to be able to keep it alive. And it wasn't until I was right on top of it that they became startled. It didn't take long to get them all into a small pile. And this is, again, a moment where a semi-automatic would be nicer because you can just go tap, tap, tap and work your way through them. Coming on to the other side of the lake, and I'm engaging targets over there. And that's another stoppage. And that's me clearing the stoppage with my magazine because the bolt is seized up. I'm enjoying the bit of aircon in here. The aircon's not that flash, but it's better than the temperature was outside. Here we have a small group. They're just walking along. And so I've gotten onto the bonnet of the vehicle. This is some of the ones lagging behind that I'd started to whack from up on the hill. The distance was a bit over 400 meters. So I've jumped onto the bonnet so I don't have to walk, because we weren't using a tray back. We don't have any tray back utes with a with aircon at that stage. Bailed off to take a knee. Good action shot where you've got the brass coming out. And here we have another group coming in from the right. they're a herd animal, so they will follow the lead and they'll go through it and just jump onto the smoothest path. For them, it's this nice clear road that we've graded. So as we're driving, dropping them, you can see that that's happening pretty quickly. Refresh mags. So this animal here, I've jumped out of the car and just snapped it, and that was you can just see it, bit of a shadow of it there. There we have a scalping of a camel. So that's just picked it up, and that shot's gone in through the back of the skull. And that's where the photo reel stops. So at this point, we're on the other side of the lake. We're coming to our next water point, and the kill count is over 170 for that session. Now, under those trees out there, it's actually some camels as well as cattle. Anyone and everyone's trying to find some shade, like some break from the heat. That didn't pick up around.
And which mob? That one, or that one?
Oh, there's also that one and two more back there.
So at this stage, we were starting to get a little bit worried about the amount of ammunition we had left. So one of the reasons that we started videoing all of this was we were told that it's not possible that there would be this many camels anywhere in one place. And that's why we turned around, took the footage, and then just said, well, here's your evidence. And they really didn't want to accept it. And then they denied us any assistance on this job. And this was all in amongst making sure our livestock had their water. And that's a horse there. And the most horrifying thing about this is just not having enough ammo on us at the time to drop them all with a 308.
Oh shit, son.
So these we've taken out just with the 22, knocked off the little mob that weren't going anywhere. But you know, these camels have no commercial options. They're not fit for transport. They're not fit for consumption or anything. They were just buggered. He looks a bit fat though, and that's because he's a boss camel. And so at this point, it's kind of a moment of, well, I don't have enough ammo to really get started into another mob, so it's just to make sure that each shot's done its job. And then to kind of, not exactly call it a day, because I came back as quickly as I could. So that's it for the 308 here, and we just went through and took out the last of them that had, you know, were bleeding and weren't really walking anywhere with the 22. And I got back into the day after we turned around, went home, and I geared myself up. So, went home, had a shower, a warm shower, because it wasn't really an option to have a cool shower. And, yeah, had a Gatorade or two, and I grabbed a box of 500 rounds more ammo, and a fair lot more of 22 Magnum ammo, jumped in the plane and flew out. Just making sure I've got plenty of fuel. And from up here, having a look at really the spread of camels and what I've got ahead of me. So from here you can see where this is where we'd driven in, and that's that group of camels that I'd shot, the ones under the trees that we'd taken out, and then the couple out here. And you can see that camels have already started coming back into this area, but over here these camels are alive. So you got them set up under the trees there. They are all alive under that tree. So just under there, that is just a whole mass of bodies. There's somewhere around 40 camels just there under that tree, and they are alive. You've got the couple that I shot at the end there with the 308, and now I've got these ones. So as I'm going along, I'm checking my strip, making sure left and right. I'm not going to have anyone run out, but given that they weren't running away before, they're not likely to bother me on landing. Now, the key thing with all of this is just how distressing it was for me not being able to put them down quick enough. It was just difficult to see and difficult to do. And when you're confronted with so many targets in front of you, it's quite difficult really to work out where you're going to start and where you're going to finish and what you can realistically achieve.
Hi and welcome to another episode of Outback Hunter. Remember, if you like this video and want to see more, like and subscribe down the bottom of this video page. Today we've got ourselves somewhere in the vicinity of 50 camels camped up next to this water point. So today's weapons of choices are a semi-automatic 22 Magnum, for which we have 15 rounds ready to go, plus an extra 50 to go in my second pocket. Going to see the effectiveness of the semi-automatic 22 on a stationary target. As our backup for the 22, or as the 22 as backup, for we have our 308 Remington. We have three magazines for that, with 10 rounds in each. Now, in these sort of temperatures, I forgot to mention that today's episode is brought to you by Garmin.
It's definitely not brought to you by Garmin,
which I'm using right now. Pretty good. And it's going to give us an idea of my heart rate during this little bit of a tidy up. So we'll start out with the 22 Magnum. We've got a mob of around 25 over there, and we've got somewhere in excess of 30 under this tree. So we'll close the gap, and then we'll open up. 22 Magnum should be good for a range of around 80 metres, but we'll try it out at less. Okay, so 22 Magnum is not the effective weapon or choice, so we're going to switch over to using 308, where we've got a little bit more hitting power. Extended range at 300 metres if we're really keen. But let's get started.
Big old miss. And they're not running anywhere, so I should take a better firing position than what I'm doing. Not using a Garand, that's the magazine's bent. That's a ricochet.
Back out.
Big old miss. That one is still actually in that tree where I shot it.
So I've had a mag fail. She's been my old trusty. We'll see what we can do to get it back up and running. But the other thing is that this mob of camels, they're not going too far. We should be able to tidy up a fair few of them. Just over our indexing pin in position, tapping back. It's one for now. This fella hasn't been hit yet, so we'll fix that right now. Then we'll tidy up. We'll carry on with the rest of the mob. At the moment, been refraining from shooting the little ones. It's not a mercy thing, it's a logistics, it's ammo. Been finding it's not the shooting that scares them, it's the funny two-legged creature. Fella on the right there, he's pretty lucky. Got another 8 rounds to use on the rest of this little mob. I've got another mag box, so One of the issues you can see is overheating. Causing us a little bit of strife, reduces our efficiency. Bolt action rifles aren't renowned for their quick follow-up shots.
So you can see just there I've got blood on my knuckles from striking that Picatinny rail. We're back into it.
That we have with that is the reliability of the rifle and just the structure. It just doesn't handle the sheer bloody amount of shooting we have to do. A little bit too light. Alright fella, your game's over. The rest of the mob's through there. We'll see how we go. We got in the vicinity of 25 rounds left, so we might be able to do a little bit of damage on this mob, but we've got another 100 rounds in the plane. Got to be careful not to do flock shooting, as we've got so many targets. You still need to define a target and aim for that, otherwise you're just wasting ammo. Once again, hang up in the breech. I'm going to use a plastic mag this time. Mag out. Miss. Miss. Right, so we're just hitting a distance where it's getting a little testy.
And I'm getting exhausted.
We also are having rounds walk, which is as the barrel gets hot, placement deteriorates.
Now remembering this is all well and truly before I was
Got cattle
YouTubing,
walking behind.
and
Camels, they don't seem to mind
even
at all.
considering things like
Alright, let's work some of these numbers down.
a scope cam.
Mag out.
And that is when the GoPro decided that it wanted to pause. So this is footage from one day. I did this for a couple of weeks, and what I do have is some footage from the next day. So on this day we didn't carry the pistol. We relied solely on the rifles. The pistol would have been much nicer to do the tidy up and just to have it right there on my hip and be able to get it out as I walked along and just finish them there and then, rather than waiting for Jasmine to come through when she was with me and use the 22. So the tally for that day on the records here is 634. So that's by the ground shooting and then coming in, flying, and going around on foot only. So you saw firsthand some of the challenges I faced with my kit, and also it's now abundantly clear that we don't have access to semi-automatic rifles centerfire. And yeah, for those of you who thought it was pretty bad in the footage earlier through the year where I've been using it, like this year where I've been using a pump action, it's been nothing. Like, at least now the rifle I'm using is a lot nicer, it's smoother, reliable, and I've got larger capacity magazines plus a stack more of them. And that's why I go out with so much ammunition, because I learnt during that time I needed more. Now, this difficult work is necessary to ensure our cattle don't meet the same fate as the ones in the lake. And there are people that say that we do it for greed. No, we do this to survive as a business. Now, there are some people that say this is dangerous footage to put out there because it can be used against me politically. And I sort of welcome that, because it's going to show the world the real issue that we have out here and a bit of reality. Plus, I really don't mind getting my hands into the work. And people who think we don't care about animals, I challenge you to go out into weather that is halfway to boiling to euthanize animals under these conditions, because it's not nice, but it's got to be done, otherwise they will die in a horrific way. For those of you who reckon it's easy, go out and try running that heat. Turn the temperature up in your gym, put some kit on, go do it. Those of you who know what it's like have been in worse situations than this. If we weren't there, the camels would have had an even worse fate. And to directly quote those who I asked for help, it's too hot to come out there, and every camel we don't have to pay for is a bonus. So I'm going to leave it there today, and I'll get on to the next day's footage. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you know when that next video comes out. It's taken a while to decide to put that footage up, because it's not the cleanest, it's not the best recording. It shows some of the rougher stuff, and but that's the reality. That's it. And it shows that there has been an improvement in the job, that we've gotten a lot better at it, a lot more efficient, and it's not easy. It's not easy work, and it's not cowboy fun or anything. So there's that. There's more footage. The next lot would say that I not descended into madness, but I definitely needed my music going to be able to make it a little bit better. Singing along to the music made it a lot easier to deal with reality and the fatigue. But I found that as I was doing that one, when I didn't have Jasmine with me and I'm going around, it was pretty good to talk to that camera as an outlet. And I find that more and more now that I'm actually turning the video into something that I can get out there. So, yeah, thanks for joining me on that, and I will see you around, and yeah, we'll keep on keeping on. Cheers.